You can love each other deeply and still be moving in different directions. Love does not guarantee alignment, but communication does. Let's talk about it right after this.
Let's talk about love and marriage the way that God intended. Life experience, here we share it. The Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. Podcast. Will help your spirit transform.
Hey y'all, so there's a thing. Hey Kyle, first of all, how are you?
Hey, babe,
Before
how
I
are
jump in
you?
this. All right. I'm kind of interested about this topic because there's the phrase that love doesn't guarantee alignment, but communication does. I'm reminded of a movie where it said, "Love didn't bring you home last night," right? Do y'all remember what movie that was? That's a movie trivia for y'all, right? And so what happens is that love, yes, it's a feeling, but that level of communication is what's going to bring you home. There have been times where I know for us, Kaf, our alignment had been off communication-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were times where neither one of us wanted to come home. That because of that, again, you're moving two different directions. And so, and part of that, so we're miscommunicating on what is the expectation of the other. And sometimes we can't even put that into words of what we expect of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
And what that really means, what it takes on both parties. So if we want to, or let's go back to, if y'all listen to some, shows or what our goals have been or whatever might have, whatever's been going on, and so if I say, hey, I want $1 million house, and you know what, you should just, because you love me, you should just support me in that idea. Well, no, dude, like, there's a whole lot more that goes to it. And in that comes what? Hey, you know what? We need to be more intimate, right? And so, again, what the heck does that mean? Because intimacy means something different to any and everybody, right? And you don't understand that communication is a very valuable part of intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
But and Kafi and I had talked about this not too long ago. Is the locker room conversations or high school conversations or whatever it is, when you really don't know what intimacy really is, and then everything is physical or whatever, and how do you know how to really express yourself in all reality? It takes time, it takes years, it takes security, it takes confidence, it takes a whole lot of different things. And I think that's part of what happens is that when we think that love is going to be enough,
Mm-hmm.
but it really isn't, because love is not going to help us pay the bill, right? Love is not going to say, all right, or we can't say, all right, well, Maurice, here's the bill to the electric bill. What are we going to do about it? Well, Kyle, you know what? Love said they'll pay it, on the next paycheck, right? Because that's what love promised. But this paycheck right here, we're going to go and get some movies and go get some food and sit down and, chill out. And next paycheck comes, never. And so not having a true plan, a true level of communication hurts or can hinder whatever growth or whatever you got going on. So I think we can reduce the idea that love can replace communication. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you that just having love is not enough in a relationship. That communication is key. It's paramount. It's essential. It's, I don't know, all the other, words that would say that it's needed. It's the lifeline. It's the bloodline of a marriage, of a good relationship, of being able to communicate one with another, and even communicating with yourself on what you really want out of your relationship and what do you want in your relationship is needed as well. As Maurice stated, yes, there were times that the both of us didn't want to come home, and just want to follow it up and say we both came home, but it took a long time to come from the bus stop to the house, or it took a long time to come from the car to the front door because of what may have been faced, what we may have to face coming in the door. All those challenges, whether it was lack of communication and the air was just thick and there was tension, because we were not aligned, we were not happy with ourselves, we were not happy with where our relationship was, we weren't happy with where we were living, we weren't happy with the bills piling up, we weren't happy with the stress of school and, whatever else may have been going on in our lives during that season, that troubling time. It caused us to pause before we went in the house, for me to reflect and get myself together, to switch gears from work, from traffic, from being on public transportation, whatever it was, to what am I going to face going in the house? What ups and downs that our children have that need addressing, what things are going on with my spouse, and how to handle all of that. And every day was not peaches and cream, and every day wasn't a holiday. There were days where it was tough. Life was tough. Life was lifing, and didn't know how to handle it or how to adjust to it or how to work through it. At that particular time, as Maurice said, we didn't have a lot of role models. We didn't have marriage coaches that knew, like, hey, be real, like, what's going on? Like, you smiling, on the outside, but what's really, really going on the inside? What are your concerns? What are your struggles? What are just what's going on? And checking in on us on whether or not we are aligned at home, because that is where it's supposed to be the safe space. That's supposed to be the your foundation. But if, there's a lack of communication, that love was just not enough. Maurice and I still loved each other. We still cared for each other. We still respected each other. But because of the lack of communication, we weren't aligned with the vision and the purpose of our marriage. We weren't aligned with the day-to-day. And it took some time to get through all of that. But thank God we made it. Somehow, some way we did. I still sit back and ponder over, okay, well, what was it that shifted it? What was it that fixed it to get us to this season of joy versus those seasons of, I don't know, I don't want to say the total opposite of joy. Again, we had good days, even in those stressful years. We vacationed together. We played games. There were still some things that, like when we said, hey, we're going out to buy a movie, and we would sit and look at a movie. I might fall asleep on the movie, but, we still had some family time together. We still took, family portraits and whatnot. So there was still love there, but the communication was not always there.
I think what I know for myself was being really intentional on some of our conversations.
Mm-hmm. So starting the communication, or
I'm sorry, intentional in our conversations. Communicate.
No, you said conversations, and I was just saying. So we had to communicate with the conversation.
Yeah, we did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because and having those, we just had one recently, right? A very intentional, it became intentional, conversation to understand the other person,
mm-hmm.
right? It didn't start off that way. It's because of us, again, this part was intentionally talking about what we had seen another podcast talking about,
mm-hmm.
right? So that was an intentional conversation where we're doing a reflect, we're doing a regroup. Hey, what have they said? What didn't they say? Whatever it is. And it led into a whole nother level of conversations for us. And in the past, it would have literally wrecked not just the evening, but the days after.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reality is, how do you get past it? How do you deal with that? And then it goes on both persons, both individuals. Are you mature enough to handle it and move forward? Have a better understanding? I mean, it's not always easy,
mm-hmm.
Especially some of those intentional conversations, where it's like, yo, we need to talk about this in order to get to the next level. Because getting to the next level is not comfortable.
Right.
And if you think that, you could be comfortable and get to another place, no, that's not hard. That's not easy to do,
mm-hmm.
Because in order for you to grow, it has to hurt. It has to be some type of pain related to it. And so it doesn't have to be a physical pain, but there has to be something that's going to make you wince or something. And if it doesn't, in my opinion, you're not growing, because it's the idea of you have to tear something apart and build it back up, almost like when you're working out. In order to get bigger muscles and stronger muscles or whatever it is, it has to be ripped and built back up. So it's almost like anything else. In a lot of cases, when you look at organizations, churches, whatever it is, you got to rip out the whole board and build it back up, because guess what? You have to replace it with something that's a little stronger, maybe a little more, or individuals that are stronger, have more information, resources, whatever the situation might be. So in order for you to get to another place, it got to be torn up. And you have to be almost in a position of like you want to cry.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to cry, but that's just my definition of growth. You don't have to agree, and that's fine. We can agree to disagree. But I'm just letting people know, like, hey, that's how I vibe with that. And that's the only place that I know how to grow for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like something you said the other day, Kaf, about a scab, right?
Mm-hmm.
We touching things, and you pull the scab off, and you realize that the skin underneath has relatively healed. It's just that when you pull the scab off, It's just those ends of the scab that's kind of like still attached to the skin.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, wow, that's the part that I feel. But that, again, that's external, right? But the internally inside of that scab, the skin has actually healed up.
Healed up, right.
And it's not bleeding, it's not doing anything. Or even if you do pull it because it is skin, can you get a little bleeding off the edges? Maybe, and like, hey, you know what? We're not all the way done yet, but we healed up enough that we can get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, when it comes to being aligned, it really requires a level of intentional conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And those conversations it's not going to be easy. I hope that, y'all don't think that it's going to be easy, because something's going to come up, something's going to pop up. Somebody's going to say something that's, you'll be like, what'd you say?
Mm-hmm.
And then the responses, all that type of stuff. But understand, like, that's all part of growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Having, like you said, having those intentional conversations, I think maybe in the beginning it might be easy, but as you dive in and you dive deeper, and you get more to the core of the issue, more to the core of the person, yeah, those conversations can become more tough and more challenging. Again, I applaud Maurice for digging deep into himself, doing some self-reflection as he has trained to be a coach. It allowed him to look deeper in himself. It allowed him to look deeper into our relationship. And we had some of those conversations. And I'm not saying we didn't start having them before then, but I think, Maurice, some of your training as a coach has helped to spark those conversations, has begun to awaken some things to make you start questioning, things about yourself, your decisions, why you feel certain ways. Like you said, why did you want the big house, or, type of thing. It helped you to understand some of that. And it helped our relationship.
And I think that if we have not had those type of conversations, the tension when it comes to our finances, right? So we, what hinders us in our financial space? What challenges are we dealing with? Again, some of the things that we've spoken about, like, hey, Maurice, you do understand that what you're doing triggers me because of my upbringing, right? That was a conversation. When it comes to the tension in just how we parent our kids, all right, what was some of our traumatic moments or situations, possibly, and now looking at it and not just dealing with it from a kid perspective, but now, all right, I'm say 30. Now I'm 30 years old. So now can I start to understand why I do this, and this? And that's the reason why I don't want to have my kids in this situation or not. And then how it really has affected our peace at home, i.e., again, something else you and I just talked about. Y'all hear we talked about a lot, where you work all day or whatever it is, and that whatever the cartoon is or whatever it is, that you hang up your coat, your work coat and pocketbook or briefcase or whatever else on a tree outside the house.
Yes.
Idea, right? And so, and then you come in the house, but if you don't have that type of peace, how can you get that done, right? Even in the home, because now you're picking up you're dropping off one problem and picking up another, mentality-wise. So So some of the misalignment, some of the ideas of not being on the same page can be caused because we're not having intentional type conversations.
And even with the intentional conversations, I know you're speaking about misalignment, but even having an intentional conversation, you can find out how aligned you really are. I think even though I may not have wanted the 30 acres and $1 million house, I didn't necessarily want to live in a shack. Maurice may not have wanted to travel the world or whatever, but he still wants to travel. So it's just having that conversation and understanding, hey, our goals are similar, may not be if you wrote it down, it's not the exact goal that's the same, but it's on the same track. So understanding that and then creating goals together, taking from what Maurice wants, taking from what I want, and then saying, hey, how do we create something together? It doesn't necessarily have to be a compromise. It doesn't have to be in the middle. It might be something totally far-fetched or a combination of a bunch of goals. But all of those things together can help build better alignment within the home to create things. I think if two people are holding hands and one's going to the left and one's going to the right, you really don't go anywhere. Or you go to the left a little bit, then you go to the right a little bit. But somebody could be walking a little bit off and the other person walking straight. Well, you still can kind of go straight. You're just kind of walking off to the left because somebody's pulling to the left, but you both could be going forward. So you just kind of have to kind of figure out where you are and how to get on the same page, as Maurice would say, or, one person might be at the top of the page, one person at the bottom of the page, as what I would say, but you're in the same book, you're in the same chapter, and be able to move forward working that way. Everybody reads at different speeds. They get through things differently, but the point is to get through it. So that's what I would like to share with everybody.
I would like for you to, those of you that are listening, to take a 20-minute moment and just check in with your spouse, your loved one, whatever it is. You want to call it, because I listen to some social media stuff. They got some very interesting words for relationships. There's like 5 stages dating. They even said, what is it called? What was the thing called? But you have talking, dating. What is it called? A situationship. That's what it was. Like, what the heck is a situationship? Like, that sounds retarded. But regardless, right? Again, I'm an old fogey mentality, right? But just check in with your situationship and and talk to them and find out, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? What you're feeling? What's your goals or aspirations? And just to make sure that y'all are aligned. And if you can also. If they don't understand where you're coming from with that, send them this episode and let them know, like, hey, won't you listen? Now we could be on literally the same page, So that's all I got to say, Kaf.
Yeah. So after you send it to someone and they listen, then talk about it. And then, both of y'all can comment and let us know what your thoughts are.
So we thank y'all very much for listening.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
And we'll talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the No Fruit Podcast, where we bring you fruitful conversations, ripened wisdom, and love that's deeply rooted. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration in their day. Until next time, stay rooted in love, and remember, every seed you plant today shapes the fruit of tomorrow.